Can you please type in chat if you hear me? Can you please type in chat if you hear me? Отлично. So, так, let me disable my voice. I have desktop audio. 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 Please wait 1 minute. Okay, let's start the stream. First of all, I hear my voice again. Что? Ладно. Okay, can you please say if you hear me now? Nice. Okay. First of all, you don't need to watch the stream if you just want to complete this task. All necessary information is placed inside README file. But if you just don't know how to start, I will show you this repository and I will show you the basics of how to work with it. So if you just don't know how to start, this video will be useful. Okay. Let's clone the repository. Let's start the server according to these steps. First of all, we install the dependencies. Next step, we should create a .env file. Next step, we have to create a database file. This file should be inside Prisma folder. This is called database DB. After file is created, we have to apply migrations. Next step, we have to trigger our seed function. Nice. And now we can start the server with the command npm run start. Also, if you want to know how your database looks like, what information inside your database, you can use npx Prisma Studio, I think, and that's it. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 models, and all empty. All models are empty, but we have 2 records inside member type because we used the seeding. So we have our database initialized. What is your next step? Your next step should be to check this repository and look at these RESTful endpoints. To use the Swagger, you can go to this and on the path docs. And as you can see, you have Swagger endpoints. And if you don't know what Prisma is and how to work with your database, you can practice inside this Swagger. For example, if you want to create your user, this endpoint will be triggered. And inside the handler for this endpoint, Prisma user create function will be called. And if you want to see what this function does, you can check this. For example, we want to create a user with balance 0. You press execute. You have response body, and also you can check the result of this operation inside your Prisma Studio like this. You reload the page and you see updated result. As you can see, we have balance 0, we have name string as we created here. And you can also practice with another endpoints to understand what they do. Next step for you is to start working with GraphQL endpoint. So if you go right here, you have GraphQL post endpoint, and this endpoint is expected your query, and optional variable is variables, where you can pass your variables. Yes. So what is your next step to work with GraphQL? Inside your request object, you have body object, and inside your body object, you have query and variables. You take these variables and place inside your GraphQL function. And this GraphQL function, as you can see, takes the arguments of type GraphQL args. So to trigger that GraphQL function, you have to pass schema, you have to pass source, and optional arguments are variable values, and that's it. Maybe if you have some questions, you can ask me. Good questions. I can see the questions in the Discord. Wait. Hmm. I don't know why random directory can break your project. I just don't know. Maybe you have problems with Fastify. When you initialize your Fastify project, this function checks if file nested or it ends with index.js. So if your file is nested and it is not ends with index.js, your file just cannot break Fastify. So I don't understand your question. If you need some best practice video, this is not about me. You can find just huge amount of good videos on the YouTube or other resources. This video is not about GraphQL lecture. I'm not a specialist to make a lecture about GraphQL. Void return handling. How to properly type them. I think I understand. So in the REST part, you have endpoints like this with a delete method, which return nothing, type void, with HTTP code 204. And as you can see inside the tests, in the GraphQL mutations test, you can check these tests, and as you can see, I am triggering delete post, and I didn't specify any fields in the response. So what is your options? You can just return nothing, or you can, for example, return string. So if you, for example, return string from this resolver, it is just fine. Your tests will be successfully completed. Okay, some important notes. Okay, I have to show you. Inside GraphQL folder, you also have custom scalar type, which is UUID type. Yes, and as you can see inside the tests, I am using this custom scalar type, and you can reference to this scalar type by his name, which is UUID. And as you can see, UUID is used here. But when you are working with member type should be type of member type ID. And member type ID is the enum value, like that. I will show you. As you can see, you can create GraphQL enum type, and it should look like this. And member type ID should be GraphQL enum type. And the values for this enum should be like this. So the member type ID can be basic or it can be business, and that's it, nothing else. About error handling. That's good questions. That's good question, but I don't think I have something like that inside the tests. So if you don't have this specific case inside the test, you can do as you like. Okay, let's see. Let's try to find tests which creating profile. Create profile. So we have the test where I create a profile, and that test should fail because invalid DTO year of birth. So this is more like a validation error. But okay, again, if you don't have this specific case inside the tests, you can do as you like. You can, but better to stay inside the GraphQL paradigm. What do I mean? If you have error because user already has a profile and you are trying to create new profile, it should be something like that. You should have data now, for example, and you should have the errors array, and your error should be inside that array. That's it. But we can create a new custom type void like your UID. I just don't know why you should want it. I don't see any reasons why you should want void scalar custom type. I guess you can, but why? Again, one more, I think, useful thing. For example, if you are working with tests, let's try to test queries. And for example, when you are running these tests, you have something like that. You have errors, and to see on which row error was thrown, you can press Ctrl and left click and see where your error occurs. And it is more useful to work with debugger. You can just open, how is it called? Okay, you can just open your JavaScript debug terminal Okay, you can place, like for example, breakpoint over here, and trigger your tests from your JavaScript debug terminal. And as you can see, when your code hit this row, your code will be stopped, and you can check the values of your variables. Let's see, we have, for example, member types, which is this and this, and we have the response from our GraphQL query, which is data. And because we didn't specify anything, this data will be empty. And if you want to use debugger, you need to use this option, timeout, which is equals 0, because tests run only for, I don't know, 1 minute or 30 seconds, and after that it just crashes. If you want to use debugger with infinite amount of time, you can just use this option and start your tests with the debugger and debug your code as you like. Test loader and test loader prime. What are the difference? Okay, to complete npm run test loader, you just need to make very usual data loader logic. Yes, and when your tests inside the test loader are successfully completed, you can go next to the npm run test loader prime, and I will show you the difference. As you can see about GraphQL loader prime, when you query all the users, at this moment you have all the information to get these users and these users. So that's it. When this resolver will be triggered inside this query, you don't need to find information about users, because all the users you might get inside that resolver are already where, как по-английски? Okay, when you query users inside resolver from here, you have every users in your database. And when you query this, your users should be already inside the cache. And when you use data loader, you should use these methods prime. By this method, you can replace your cache. That's it. Okay, I will wait for 1 minute. If I see questions, I will answer. If I don't, I end the stream. And one more thing about checking integrity. you have test integrity npm script, and what it does, it just takes the paths from your local repository, it gets the strings out of your code, and it compares the strings from your local repository with the remote repository. And if we have some misconceptions between your local repository and remote repository, you will get error. Like, for example, like this. You have npm run tests integrity. We have is same false inside GraphQL loader prime test. Why? Because we added this import. Let's remove this import and trigger this npm test again, like this. Now we have true for all rows. About second question, yes, you can use hash, but because we are using such a small files, you just don't need it. If you have very big files, I don't know, maybe a couple of megabytes or just megabyte, I think hash is your right choice. But when you are working with, I don't know, maybe 1,000 characters, string is enough. And what about accessing the database? Should we pass Prisma as context, or we can use Prisma clients? No, you absolutely need to use Prisma from the Fastify object, like here. As you can see, inside Fastify object, you have Prisma, and all your Prisma calls should be done from this object. Yes, like no, you should use Prisma from the Fastify object, because when you use just Prisma client, I don't know, maybe like this then, maybe like this. You just open a new connection to your database, and that's bad. You should reuse your connection. and you can reuse your connection by using the same instance of Prisma, which you can access through your Fastify object. About confusing. You can just use references to completed RESTful endpoints, and as you can see here, I just get this Prisma from this Fastify, and when you are initiating the GraphQL endpoint, it's just the same. If someone will have the problems with that, this is their fault. But that cannot be an error, because we have the task which have tests. You pass the tests, you have your score, and that's it. I think you shouldn't take out the score from someone if they have wrong Prisma calls. Yes, no penalties. Хорошее слово. Good word. Penalties, yes. Okay, I wait for 1 minute. If no questions, I end stream. And I think one more very important thing about using Prisma clients is when you will work with data loaders, because as you can see here, we have endpoints to get the subs of the current user. Yes, and when you will work with the data loader tests, yes, when you will work with n+1 problem, you will need to a little bit modify this Prisma call. And my advice to you is to read about this operator. Prisma has in operator, and you should modify this function to use this in operator to complete data loader tests. That's my little advice. Okay, I end the stream now. Good luck with the task.